It's only human nature to always want the latest and the fanciest, the best and shiniest piece of equipment, and in that regard, this is the DJI Action 4. Many of you guys have asked me to compare it to the reliable and battle-tested DJI Pocket 2. The question is, when does good stops being good? And technically, you would argue that a camera that has 3 years more of research and development should be better than a camera that is 3 years old. But this is an action camera, and DJI markets this aggressively as an action camera. So that should give you a big indication as to what each of these cameras can and cannot do. And one of the biggest and most important features on these cameras is the stabilization. And this is where things couldn't be more different, because the DJI Action 4 relies on digital stabilization, whereas the DJI Pocket 2 is mechanical. And that is a huge difference that is going to dictate what you can and cannot do with these cameras, because the DJI Action 4 is a camera that relies heavily, and I genuinely mean heavily, on high brightness and contrast levels. The moment you put an ND filter on and you set exposure to manual to stick to the 180-degree rule, stabilization goes out the window and you're gonna have to go back to full auto. In doing that, you have no idea what the camera is doing, but I can tell you one thing, it doesn't look like you have an ND filter, and the stabilization is not quite alright. It's okay if the camera is not moving a lot, like vlogging, walking, or maybe if you're cycling on very smooth roads. But if you go off-road, if you do any of the activities that this camera is designed to do, it's not gonna work. You are never gonna get as good a stabilization as if you have no ND filter and the camera on full auto. The Pocket 2, on the other hand, is a very different story, because the stabilization is mechanical. And that's where ND filters come into place, because with the DJI Pocket 2, you can use ND filters without having to worry about any issues with the stabilization of any kind, because there is a gimbal that takes care of that. That is a big, massive difference in image quality. And in terms of operation and creativity, if you try to do the moves that you can achieve on the Pocket 2 on the Action 4, it's basically impossible. You can do an up and down shot and have a really nice reveal shot, whereas the Action 4, there is absolutely no way you can do that, because it's not intended for that. So this is a very important distinction that you need to bear in mind. What you can do with either one of these cameras is very different. This is not me saying that the Action 4 is worse than the Pocket 2 or vice versa. It's just that the intended market and use is very different. Another aspect that is very different with these two cameras is the lens distortion, because the DJI Action 4 has a very aggressive lens distortion that is not so much of a problem when you're using the camera as it's intended as an action camera, but it becomes very obvious and very annoying, I would say, when you try to use this as a traditional camera, because that's not what this camera is intended for. DJI had to do something to achieve the 155-degree field of view that you get on the Action 4. And this is something that the Pocket 2 is never going to achieve. But on the other hand, you don't get anywhere near as aggressive lens distortion as you get on the Action 4, which makes it more pleasant to look at, because the Pocket 2 is intended to be used as a traditional camera to film people, buildings, places, landscapes. And in that regard, you are always going to get a much nicer and pleasant image to look at on the Pocket 2 than the Action 4. And if you are still decided to use the Action 4 as a traditional camera, let me give you one word of warning: overheating. Because these two cameras have very different heat dispersion systems. The Action 4 is a camera that is designed to be used while you're doing any type of sports and you have wind that is cooling the camera. And yes, I know that you've seen videos on YouTube where people do overheating tests, setting the camera static on a tripod, and they will tell you that any frame rate below 30 and the camera doesn't overheat. Let me tell you one thing, and this is from my own experience, okay? If you try to do any type of vlogging or use this camera as a traditional camera, it's gonna overheat in about 15-20 minutes, because for the sensor it's a lot less intensive to be filming something static with no movement on a tripod than take it into the real world, where it has to deal with brightness, contrast, movement, color, stabilization, and all the things that this camera has to do in the background in order to keep nice stabilized footage. This is something that you don't have to worry on the Pocket 2, because it's designed as a traditional camera. So the heat dispersion system is very different. And yes, it does get hot, and sometimes you think that it's going to overheat. But I have never had the Pocket 2 overheating and stopping filming on me. The Action 4 looks really nice, very sharp, and you get the ability to adjust the sharpness, which is something that you don't get with the DJI Pocket 2. On the other hand, the DJI Pocket 2 has a very nice and gentle image. The Action 4 has to be by nature sharper than the Pocket 2 because it relies on high contrast and brightness to do the digital stabilization. So having a sharper image helps big time in that area, whereas the Pocket 2 doesn't have to worry about that because the gimbal takes care of that. As an action camera, as you go off-roading downhill or skiing down a slope, you want that sort of sense of being there and aggressive and danger. Whereas the Pocket 2 doesn't have to do that, and it's a much more traditional camera, so you don't want that over-sharpened look. Having a 10-bit color signal, it's very nice in the grade. The Pocket 2 is an 8-bit. Dcine is not quite Dlog, it's a bit of a flat color space. So in that regard, the Action 4, I think, has a bit of an edge. But saying that, if you expose correctly and your highlights don't clip and your shadows are within reason, you're gonna get really nice footage from the Pocket 2 as well. But for now, the Pocket 2 feels a little bit behind than the Action 4. Now, saying all of that, if you know what you're doing and you expose correctly, your footage is gonna look amazing regardless. If there is one area where the Action 4 is way better than the Pocket 2 is in terms of screens, because you get two screens, one at the front and one at the back. Both are touchscreen and they look really nice, they're very bright, and you genuinely can see what it is that you're doing. Obviously, that's gonna give you an advantage when you are filming on location, and the Pocket 2 screen is just too small in my opinion. Now, I understand why it's small because it's the shape of the camera, but I think it's beginning to feel dated. The Pocket 2 has an ace up its sleeve, and that is that you can attach a phone to the Pocket 2 and give you a much larger screen that is touchscreen. The Action 4 is an action camera. You're not gonna have a 7-inch phone screen attached to it because that would defeat the purpose of the camera. But the Pocket 2 is not an action camera, it's a traditional camera with a gimbal. So that's not an issue that you have to worry about, and you can have a larger screen and that's not gonna affect the operation of the camera. I can't really tell you whether one is better than the other because they both offer something different that is relevant to what the cameras do. Now, there is an area where the Action 4 is definitely better than the Pocket 2, and that is on the dynamic range, because you can definitely feel that the Action 4 has a bit more, how to say, oomph than the Pocket 2. The Action 4 is always going to have that inherent digital look because of the nature of how it does the filming, which is very much over sharpened and very contrasty. So even in Dlog, the image is much sharper than the Pocket 2. So this is another area where I personally think this is down to personal taste. Now, one area where the Pocket 2 is much better than the Action 4 is when it comes to low light, because even though the Action 4 has a low light mode, it's just not good enough. It's much better than the Action 3, but it cannot compare to the Pocket 2 because the Pocket 2 is an actual camera and a gimbal, and you can expose it correctly as a camera, whereas the Action 4, when you go into manual modes, the camera struggles with the stabilization and your footage is gonna look very, very rocky and unstable. And if you go on auto, you have no control whatsoever on what the camera does. And in my opinion, if you put side by side the footage, the Pocket 2 to me looks much better. In terms of audio and sound recording, the DJI Action 4 has a fairly decent built-in microphone, as you can clearly listen, which is okay for these type of shots, vlogging or static on a tripod, but it's not so great when you're doing any sports and you have a lot of wind hitting the camera because you get a lot of distortion. But one thing that you can do is just get yourself one of these tiny little wireless microphones like the one that I have from Boya, and you just plug it onto the USB port, and you can now tell the difference in the quality of the audio that you get by just adding a wireless microphone set and a lavalier mic, which I have hidden under my t-shirt. This is an aspect of the camera that you can improve on fairly quickly and relatively inexpensive, and it's going to give you a much better sound. The DJI Pocket 2 also has its own built-in microphone, and as you can clearly listen, it does a decent job. But the beauty of this camera is that if you buy the combo deal, it comes with a dual handle and an integrated wireless radio mic that you just need to turn on, and look at the improvement in the audio quality. It's like day and night. And I'm using the same microphone as I was using with the Action 4. The beauty of this is that it's integrated within the handle itself. So in that regard, both cameras behave very similarly. Both have decent built-in microphones. And if you attach a wireless radio mic and a lavalier mic, you're gonna get infinitely much better quality, regardless of whether you use one camera or the other. Now, let me tell you one area where I think the Pocket 2 offers better functionality and user experience, and that is with the Mimo app. Because using the Pocket 2 with the Mimo app is fantastic, it's very well integrated, and adding a phone to the Pocket 2 makes the whole experience really nice. You have more features, effects, adjustments and settings that are more traditional with a normal camera than the Action 4 that is very limited range. And the Action 4 is pretty much a 2-button camera. It's turn on and record, 2 buttons, and it's supposed to get you going. And that is a big difference in the amount of settings and adjustments that you can do from one to the other. And it's gonna give you a very different look and image. A couple of other considerations to bear in mind. The Action 4 is waterproof, which means that you don't have to worry about filming under rain or underwater. Essentially, you don't have to worry about anything to do with water. And that is a massive advantage over the Pocket 2, because the Pocket 2, the moment it starts raining, you better take it indoors and stop filming because you risk damaging the camera. The question that you need to ask yourself is, how often are you going to be using either one of those cameras under the rain or underwater? And one other area that I think the Action 4 may have a little bit more flexibility over the Pocket 2 is the fact that you got interchangeable batteries, because you can have 2, 3, 4, 6 batteries and then just swap, and then you can recharge with a power bank. And that means that you are pretty much never going to run out of battery. The Pocket 2, on the other hand, is a fixed built-in battery that lasts about an hour and a half or 2 hours, depending on how intense you use the camera. On the plus side, it's so easy these days to have a power bank that you can connect to the Pocket 2 and recharge either as you film or when you put the camera in the camera bag. I don't think this is such a big issue because you adapt to what you have. And I'll be honest with you, I have never had any issue with running out of battery because I always carry a power bank with me, and it's really nice and easy when I finish filming, plug it while I'm changing locations, and when I arrive to destination for my next location, the camera is fully charged. Is there one that is better than the other? And the answer is no. Neither one is better than the other because they are both very different cameras intended to very different uses. The Action 4 is purely an action camera. I would never try to use that camera for traditional filming because first it's gonna overheat and it doesn't have the same level of functionality and user experience that if I use the Pocket 2. I don't need to rely on the camera being on auto at all times to give me sharp and high contrast images, whereas I can use ND filters easily and the camera will work well time and time again. Neither one of these cameras is better than the other one because they both serve different purposes and different uses. And that's all I have to say about it. I really hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you in the next one.